Gerry Human. Gerry, I want you to sit down here. I've been keeping the seat warm for you.
Thank you.
I want you to sit down there now and make yourself comfortable.
Lovely curtain raiser, appreciate it.
You're very welcome, very welcome. Creative ideas that tap cultural veins in new ways, inspired by human insights and amplified by the instant media world, are the ones that resonate in the consciousness of millions of people. Regardless of how everything keeps changing, people still respond to fresh, original thinking. These are the words of Gerry Human, who joins me now for a conversation on the interaction between constraints and creativity. Gerry is the Executive Creative Director of Agit8media, a creative agency he set up last year, which specialises in planning, creating and delivering disruptive and effective digital campaigns. A top-ranking creative director, Gerry has led the creation of multiple award-winning campaigns for large multinational clients, winning 62 Cannes Lions, including a Cannes Grand Prix in 2016. Gerry, a very warm welcome to you. You're very welcome here. Thank you very much for joining us today to share your insights and wisdom.
Well, thanks for inviting me, Connor, and talk about overcoming constraints. It's actually amazing that you've managed to pull this off. Here we are, not in front of a laptop screen, but in front of real life cameras, real lights, real people. So properly overcoming constraints yourself.
Sorry, Gerry, you're on mute. I didn't hear any of that. Gerry, you set up Agit8media only last year, but you've been agitating and disrupting throughout your career, grappling with some serious constraints along the way. The Dove campaign that you ran for Unilever is a standout example. Typically, the beauty industry uses images of unattainable beauty to create feelings of insecurity within consumers, priming them to then buy their products, which they say will essentially help consumers to compensate for their defects. Dove wanted to do something different. They wanted to disrupt that harmful cycle, so they imposed a constraint. No more unrealistic standards of beauty. How did you respond?
Well, it was a real privilege working on the Dove brand. When I started on it around 10 years ago, actually it was a really interesting time because the marketing team were having a big debate about whether or not they should actually continue with this idea. A lot of people felt it was quite foolish to go against the category and do the kind of exact opposite of what everyone was doing. But thankfully, they stuck to their guns and followed through with the Real Beauty campaign and continued with it. And, a decade on, the brand is worth $2 billion more than it was back then. It's a $5 billion brand now. I think probably a lot of shareholders feel the beauty of constraint in that case. Yeah, so the Real Beauty idea had been running for a few years, and what we had was a slight problem because we thought, well, how do you keep reinventing around the same idea? And what we realized was actually because the idea is so big and so culturally relevant to so many people, we were able to find more and more ways in which the sort of pervasive negative energy created by beauty advertising was affecting people's lives. And one of the teams had this amazingly intuitive insight around how we at some point in our lives become conscious of the cameras and self-conscious about the way they feel. But we're not always like that. And why? When did this happen? So we made this film which sort of works retroactively from when you're older, how people are very much don't want to be on camera, to when you're younger, you just perform for the camera and love it because you are less self-conscious. So this is something that actually social pressure creates, and we made a film about that.
And so do you think it's imperative then that brands use their platform in a socially responsible way to promote more positive messages?
Yeah, I think it's kind of ironic that the idea of body diversity is actually the stereotype in beauty advertising now, rather than back then it was the standout of, whoa, no one would dare do such a thing as show diversity in beauty advertising. So what you actually see is how many beauty brands around the world have embraced this idea of diversity in everything that they do, because they've understood that that's what people demand from them. So I don't think it's always driven from an altruistic source. It's come from what people actually expect of brands.
I think it's fair to say that you had a big hand in starting that movement. Like, you were the disruptive force back then that has, what was a kind of outlier of an idea is now, as you say, mainstream. This is like the mainstream approach, the most widely adopted approach to beauty advertising now.
Yeah, I wish I could take all the credit for it, but I'm afraid it wasn't my original idea. The people who originally came up with it were the brilliant ones. I came along when they were sort of thinking it had only been going for a short while, and they were thinking of throwing it away. And I was like, hang on a second, I think you can do amazing things with this idea over and over again, and it's only going to become bigger and more relevant. So I was this guy who got thrown the ball to go run with this, and I was lucky.
Yeah, I mean, it's not enough to have a great idea, though. You do have to then execute on that great idea, and you executed it to perfection, I think. I think that's fair.
Yeah, it is true that how you put things together makes all the difference, because all of us have ideas about what we should do all the time, but what we realized is putting those ideas together with all the fine bits of craft that make something stand out in the world, and make people share it and talk about it and notice, are actually the things that, when you have a short compressed space of time to get your point across, those things matter hugely, because anyone can make a film, make a story, create an idea now. So in order for a brand to cut through all that clutter and chaos, it has to be finely crafted along a very clear message.
Good stuff.